Hi greedy 3Ds, welcome to the third instalment of the zombie series from Berserk. They released the 3 zombies, well the 4 if you include Harley Quinn, but the 3 from the Justice League for their Halloween drop. And I've painted Batman and Wonder Woman, which you can see in my other videos. But today I've done Superman. Now I've toned Superman down just a little bit. I thought the other 2 were much too gruesome. I mean, he's toned down, but still don't show him the kids before bedtime. Let's show you how I made him and painted him. Stay tuned. Now, as with Wonder and Bats, we've used some bleached bone for his skin, and I'm not going to show you the process of putting it on. You can check that out in the other 2 videos. It is just using my airbrush carefully and spraying it on with some fake pink again. Precision airbrushing at its best here, just keeping it inside his mouth, just pinking him up a little bit, and to add a little bit of je ne sais quoi, shall we say, to him. Same again with some pure red around the eyes. I want his eyes to look like they are about to laser. So red around the eyes, and we'll do a bit more effect on that later. Now I've used some pure red here. That's the same colour that I've gone around his eyes with, but this time it is the base paint, the acrylic paint from Army Painter, and I've watered it down round about 25% paint to 75% water, and I'm going to put this wash on. Now, unlike Batman and Wonder Woman, I'm going to take 99% of this off. I'm going to use this as a wash as I would use this with any other skin tone that I've done, just to add a tint on there. So paint it on, don't let it dry, that's really important, and take a little bit of kitchen towel, a little bit of kitchen roll, maybe a Q-tip or a cotton bud to get rid of the bits you can't get to, and just get it off. I want to just stain the skin. I do not want to leave it on there. I don't want to make him look blood fested like the others. I want to just stain the skin. Now you might need to do it a couple of times, but that's fine. Just get it on a couple of times until it stains and you can see it on the outer of his skin. I'm also doing exactly the same to the inside of his mouth. I'm going to pop it on there and I'm going to swab it off to make sure that we get some splotches and some redness on the inside of his mouth too. Now in normal skin tone, the next wash is yellow, but not with zombies. I'm going to put this Witch's Brew on, a green wash. Exactly the same thing again, splatter him across there with a 75% water to 25% paint mixture. Same process entirely, splatter on, use a kitchen roll to get it off. Now you can repeat this step a few times. If you want to repeat the reds, repeat the reds. If you want to repeat the greens, repeat the greens. Use your artistic license to get the stain that you like, but a stain we need and a stain we now have, and I'm quite pleased with the way his skin's looking. He is undead, and that's how he's looking. And there we go, another layer on, another layer off. Keep going until you're happy with what's going on. Right, some leather brown here, and I'm going to put this on a really thick brush, and I'm just going to splatter this across like a freckle effect. Now I do this on normal skin, not using this colour to be honest, but I'm doing exactly the same effect, just to add a little bit of brown, speckly, splattery, freckly look across old Soup's face. Another layer of skin, and there we go. So you can see now he's got some yellowy, reddy, greeny, gooey, browny stuff going on his face. Marvellous. We are really happy with how the undead Clark Kent is coming along. Now, some blood red speed paint for the next bit, and I'm going to paint his tongue with this. This is version 1 of the speed paints from the Army Paints. You can probably pick some of these up relatively cheaply, but they are fabulous. I love speed paints, as I often say, and I'm going to make sure I get his tongue a good coat over before moving to Desert Effects to paint just a base layer on his teeth. Now, I want to give his teeth a lighter coat, and the colour that you put on his teeth here, as long as it's a light colour, probably steer away from white. Maybe use skeleton bone, or you can use this Desert Effect, as long as there's something clear on there and whitish. Because we're going to do a bit more work on it, of course. That's all you need to do. You need to just cover up the pink that's on there, or any other colour, to give it a single coat layer. Make sure to get all the teeth, including all the molars and premolars, at the back. And that's what he looks like now, with his teeth all painted nice and clean and white, but they ain't staying this way. Oh no. Right, back to that blood red speed paint, and I'm going to use that inside all the gashes and marks across his face, and there's a few of them on this model. So every time you see one of those gashes, paint the inside of it nice and thickly. Make sure you cover all of that, and just as you would expect with a gash, just go around the outside of the cut as well, just so you can show that it has bled, that it looks like there's blood leaking out of it. And we'll do a bit more work on these later on by glistening them up a little, but at this stage just go around all the gashes in his face to reveal the inner sanctum of his muscular structure inside his face. Let's make him look a little bit gory. Not quite as gory as the others, of course, but let's gore him up just a little bit. He's also got bits of skin missing that look like blistery bits, and I'm going to paint those as well because I want those to look like they're sore and blood fested. So once you've done, and there's quite a few on him, that's what he looks like. I've not overdone it. I've painted the drooly bits of his face as well with blood, as you can see there. Taking some flesh wash, one of the army painter washes, I'm going to use this wash to paint inside some of the crevices of his face, some of the nooks and some of the crannies, to make them look a little bit darker and a little bit pinky red, which is an effect I want on the veins that are sticking out on his neck too, and some of the other idiosyncrasies in his skin. Oh, we're really corpsing him up, aren't we? Now, taking some pallid bone, another one of the Speed Paints version 1, I'm going to apply this to his teeth to make his teeth look stained and yellow. This is going to make Superman look like he's been on 40 Benson and Hedges a day for the last 100 years. But that's the effect we want. He's a zombie. He don't brush his teeth. He don't go to the orthodontist. He don't visit the dentist. Well, unless he wants to eat the dentist's brain. And I just want to dirty up those teeth on the inside, on the outside. Don't forget his molars. Now, this looks quite comical, doesn't it? I've just protected that face. It's turned him into a kind of blue cockerel with some masking tape and a glove, just to protect it really, really well, while I put some matte white paint across the S. Now I'm going to paint some yellow in there, and painting yellow on black is a nightmare, so it's best to start off with a base layer of white to make the yellow stick a lot better. So I'm just using my airbrush very carefully to paint that on, and then I'm using some pure red on the airbrush to go around his cape again, trying to be a little bit careful to not get it everywhere. But it's easier to do it with an airbrush if you can get away with it than do it with a brush. It will go on evenly, it'll go on quicker, and it'll go on a lot easier. And there we go. Now the big reveal. Let's get his blue cockerel look off, take the glove off and peel off the masking tape, and voila, all of the skin tones have been well protected, and it's just made life a little bit easier masking it and painting it with my airbrush. You can do it with a brush, of course you can, if you want to. I just like to take an easier approach sometimes, and this was definitely that easier approach, but it looks really, really even too. Now for the yellows, demonic yellow is going on there, and having painted that white first, it has made the application of the yellow a darn sight easier. So I'm popping on the yellow. I'm going to take the same pure red and pop on the red around the outer part of his signal for hope. It's not an S, of course it's not, it just looks like an S, doesn't it? And I'm also going to take some ultramarine blue to paint the blue bits of his uniform around the edge first, and then around the centre part. Now I've given all of these about 2 coats. The blue I gave 3 coats actually, to make sure that it stands out and sticks out, and that's what he looks like with all the coats on. And now he's going to be left to dry a little bit while I prepare the next stage for old Superman. There he goes, there's his eyes now. Look, I've painted them white and I've done a little bit of a red outline to them. I don't want to do any more to those. I am going to put some gloss on them, but I just want him to look like he's about ready to zap something with his heat vision eye vision thing. Okay, now a little bit of the same ultramarine blue mixed with white on a dry brush, just to add another layer to the blueness of his uniform. It looks very, very monotonous and very monochrome at the moment. So I'm just going to change a bit of the colour of the blue with some of that lighter coloured blue. We're going to do some more work on his blue bits and on his red bits, but it's always nice to add a lighter shade, and this is an easy effect to do with a dry brush. And using that dry brush, skeleton bone, I'm going to do the red with it now. I could have gone red and white, but that would have made pink, and I didn't really want to put pink on his coat, so skeleton bone just adds that nice light effect to the red cape and makes it again something nice and visual to look at. So I've taken some soft tone and I've put it on a big brush, and I'm going to brush it across the blue. I want to dirty it up a little bit more. He's a zombie, he's not pristine, he's not just picked his uniform up from the dry cleaners, unless he's eaten the dry cleaners brain, of course. So let's get some of that wash all over the bits of his uniform, including the cape and the blue bits, and that's what he looks like with a little bit of a dirty effect on there. And I'm going to take a fine brush and use exactly the same wash, and I'm going to go into the little tears of his uniform and just make them stick out a little bit more. Again, just another visual layer which will make all the difference at the end. It just makes him look absolutely fantastic. So get your little fine brush, get a bit of that wash, and just go over really carefully some of the tears and rips and blemishes in his uniform. Now, some of this Blood for the Blood God, a Citadel technical paint, I love this stuff. It's absolutely great, using the same splatter effect that we used the brown before, and I'm going to just go across his uniform, go across his face, just go across him generally, getting some blood splatter effects. I really think this is a great way of getting blood splatter effects, and using your electric toothbrush spare heads is brilliant. It's just a nice firm bristle, and that's what you want. And you can see it's not an over the top effect, but it's certainly added some blood splatter all across him, which is just what we are after on this occasion. Another, and probably the final layer of skin effect that we're going to be putting on him now. So now I'm going to be taking some of that same paint, some of that Citadel technical paint, and the 3D print itself has got a few little bits on there that look like they are blood splatters. So I'm going to just paint those as we're going along, and also there's got some blood running out of his mouth as well. So I'm going to paint that with a different colour red to the rest of him to make it stick out just a little bit more. I'm also putting a little bit of that blood red just in the centre part of his cuts. I don't want to ruin what I've done with the speed paint, but I just want to add a very dark blood layer on the inside. So that's what I'm doing with a very narrow brush, just putting a glob on there and pulling it down into the centre parts. Another effect I guess we're adding on there, although we're just changing the red a little bit. Now we want to make it look wet and sloppy, so gloss varnish is what we're doing here, and I'm going to apply this thick. Get it in the eyes, get some nice thick globules of this stuff in the eyes. We want them to look a little bit wet, but of course I want to have that laser effect looking like it's about to glisten too. So get it into his eyes, make sure that everything is dry at this stage, and also make sure you use a clean brush, or you're just going to push colours all over the place with this. And the inside of his mouth too, let's get that wet, let's get that slimy, let's get that slobbery. Teeth, lips, gums, all around the outside of his mouth, and of course don't forget the blood that's oozing out of his mouth. Let's get that all wet and glistening too. And finally, with this gloss varnish, we're going to go over all the cuts and all the lacerations on his face, just to make those look like they're oozing and wet and red and slimy and slobbery. And that's pretty much the effects done. There's one last thing to do. I'm just using a dry brush with a little bit of blue on his hair, just to make his hair look a little bit more comic styly, just to brighten it up a bit and take away from the monotonousness of the black. And that's Superman done and dusted. He's all finished. Again, it wasn't hard. Lots of paints used, I know, but let's have a look at the final reveal. Hope you like it. So there we go, he's all been finished and painted and done, and I hope you enjoyed that. Now I did print him on Jam J resin and using the Uniformation GK2, and if you want to get hold of those things, in fact if you want to get hold of anything, they're in the description below and you can get them from there. I'd be really pleased to know and hear what you think of Superman compared to Wonder Woman and Batman. Do you prefer them gory, or do you prefer them a little bit less gory? I think it's down to individual preference, and I've done a little bit of all so we can compare. But Superman, to me, being a little bit less gory, I found it much more enjoyable to paint, and I think the end result is a lot nicer. Now, if you want to support the channel, you know what I'm going to say here. I say it in every video, but it is really important because you might be new to Greedy 3D. please subscribe to the channel. Think about joining our Patreon scheme, all the details of which will be down below in the description. But I really want to hear you just comment. I want to hear what you think of the channel. I want to hear what you'd like me to do next. Just any comments, share them with me, and I'll see what I can do moving forward. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen today. Stay tuned to Gritty 3D. We've got some reviews coming forward. We've got some more paint jobs. We've got lots going on, so stay tuned.